Let's be honest, our adventures don't always have to be adventurous, but it doesn't mean they aren't interesting. So tag along with me and that annoying voiceover guy as we explore part of Joplin, Missouri and southeast Kansas. Well, howdy folks, annoying voiceover guy here. Our adventure starts on Old Route 66, right here on the Missouri and Kansas state line. That little bar you saw back there was Hogs and Hot Rod Saloon. It's apparently a great place to crank your hog, but we better get on moving down the road. Now, Kansas doesn't have a whole lot of Old Route 66 on it, but the section we do have is full of a lot of treasure if you know where to look. As we pull into town here, you're going to notice a strange little collision of Hollywood imagination and our tiny Kansas town. The quiet Route 66 community of Galena, Kansas helped inspire the world seen in Cars from Pixar Animation Studios and Walt Disney Pictures. During research trips along historic U.S. Route 66, Pixar creators stopped in Galena and noticed a rusty old tow truck sitting outside a local shop. That beat-up truck helped spark the personality of the lovable character Mater. Now, we're obviously pretty proud of that, and we'd love to share it with you. So if you're ever in downtown Galena, Kansas along Route 66, go ahead and stop here at Cars on the Route right here on the corner. Have yourself a cheeseburger cooked by one of my good friends, Billy or Renee Charles. You're not going to be disappointed. Well, before Cars, literally, tiny towns in the Midwest rarely started because someone thought the scenery looked nice. They started because there was money in the ground. That's exactly what happened here in Galena, Kansas. The town sprang up in the late 1800s after rich deposits of lead and zinc were discovered in the area. Miners flooded into the region, digging into the hills for galena, the natural mineral form of lead that ultimately gave the town its name. By the 1890s, Galena had become one of the busiest mining communities in the tri-state mining district, with thousands of workers, smelters, railroads, and rough frontier energy fueling its growth. What began as a rough mining camp eventually settled into a permanent town, leaving behind a legacy tied to the boom years of American mining and the hard-working people who built a community around it. Not too far out of town, you're going to drop down into the Shoal Creek Valley. Over on the left, you're going to see Schermerhorn Park. Schermerhorn Park was developed in the early 1900s. It gave locals a place to picnic, fish, and escape the dust and noise of nearby mining towns. Today, Schermerhorn Park is best known for its walking trails, creek access, and the SEK Nature Center up there on top of the hill. Speaking of walking trails, this little trail over here up ahead of me leads back to an observation deck, and there's a pretty neat little cave back in there. If you got a minute, it don't take long to walk back there. Go check it out. Some would say Schermerhorn Park's so pretty, people don't even pay attention to the road, much less the guy on the motorcycle driving right by you. I swear, you always gotta be looking out. In the summertime, the shoreline here can get pretty packed with people looking for a place to cool off. Schermerhorn Park also serves as the western terminus for floaters and kayakers who are generally putting in Shoal Creek, somewhere around the Joplin area. Now I'd hazard to guess we all have a loop like this close to our house that we take a spin on when a spin needs taking. There ain't nothing too terribly adventurous about it, but if you ain't never done it before, you just, well, show people what it's all about. So I guess that's what we're doing here today. Now you'll see most of my route here either follows along or catches up to Shoal Creek. Just to orientate you, we're going to be south and west of Joplin, Missouri proper. Up here in a minute, you're going to find Grand Falls. Grand Falls is the largest continuously flowing natural waterfall in the state of Missouri. The falls stretch nearly 160 feet across a ledge of chert rock and limestone, creating a wide curtain of water that pours into a rocky basin below. Early settlers and miners in the region were drawn to the spot for its beauty and cool water, and it has remained a popular place for locals to swim, explore the rocks, and watch the power of the creek after heavy rains. What looks like a quiet stretch of countryside suddenly opens up into one of the most impressive natural landmarks of the area. The bluffs and formations around Shoal Creek developed over millions of years as flowing water cut down through layers of Mississippi and aged limestone and chert deposited when this region sat beneath a shallow inland sea. As the creek gradually downcut its channel, it exploited natural fractures and joints in the bedrock, widening them through hydraulic pressure, abrasion from transported sediment, and chemical weathering that slowly dissolved portions of the limestone. Seasonal freeze-thaw cycles further pried that rock apart, causing blocks to fracture and collapse along the bluff line. So you might ask, what does all that geology stuff lend to us today? Well, I think the views pretty much speak for themselves. Well, I reckon as I rip through here waking up the cows, I'd be remiss not to give you the ag scoop on this part of the world. Newton County, Missouri is quietly productive, mostly because the soil and climate actually cooperate. The county sits in the southwestern corner of the state, part of the Ozark Plateau transition. It gives it a mix of fertile bottomlands, long rivers like Shoal Creek, and gently rolling hills. This makes it ideal for row crops like corn, soybeans, and wheat, which dominate large portions of farmland. Livestock farming is also common, with cattle and poultry operations scattered across the county. Historically, small family farms have mixed crops and livestock, though in recent decades, larger commercial farms have grown more prominent. The region also sees some specialty agriculture, including hay production and some small orchards and even limited horticulture. Good rainfall and moderate temperatures help the county sustain a productive growing season, while its combination of flat fields and gently rolling hills allows for both modern and traditional practices of farming. Now up here on the left's a great little spot worth putting your kickstand down at. The Undercliff Grill and Bar sits beneath a natural limestone bluff along Shoal Creek where travelers have stopped for more than a century near the old crossing at Tipton Ford south of Joplin. What began as a 1928 general store built under the rock overhang eventually evolved into the quirky little cliffside restaurant people know and love today, where the stone bluff literally forms the back wall and the slow, patient geology of the Ozarks becomes part of the dining room itself. The small community of Tipton Ford grew up around a natural crossing on Shoal Creek where early travelers could ford the shallow water on the route between Joplin and Neosho. In the late 1800s, as mining and railroad transformed southwest Missouri, the crossing became an important local landmark and transportation point. A small settlement formed around the ford with a depot, stores, and homes serving farmers, miners, and railroad workers moving through the region. Though it never grew into a large town, Tipton Ford remained a recognizable spot along the creek and railroad line, tied closely to the early travel routes and rural communities that helped shape the development of the Joplin area. Now we're getting into my favorite part of the route. It winds down Old Scenic Drive into the city of Neosho, and then back up Lime Kiln Road on the other side of the creek. Eventually we make it back up to the Undercliff and into Saginaw, and then we figure out a way to go home. Generally I take River Road back up to Redding's Mill. This video is probably getting a little longer than lunch break at this point, so I'm going to drop a part 2. Part 2, I'll just shut up and you can listen to the bike work. How about that? I'd like to leave you with this, though. The place to improve the world is first in one's own heart and head and hands, and then work outward from there. That's by Robert Pirsig. the author of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. If you'd like more information on this route, or you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them down in the comment section. Otherwise, make sure you like and subscribe. Remember, always up, always forward.